Hi, I'm Lisa Jackson. I'm from Ann Arbor's Independent Community Police Oversight Commission. And I want to talk to you today about what civilian oversight looks like. So civilian oversight can take many forms, and really it's when any group of people from the community get together with the authority to review police behavior or police policies. And there are at least 3 different kinds of police oversight. One of those is investigation focused, and oversight bodies that have the power to do investigations actually go out and investigate police complaints, and they often have the manpower to do so and the mandate to do so. So for example, in Chicago, they have the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and whenever there's an officer involved shooting, they get called and they go out just as police do. And those kinds of bodies are often staffed with people who at some point have been in law enforcement, and there may be a mix of civilians in that group as well, and they usually include investigators as well as administrators. There are oversight bodies that are review focused, and those have the power to review police policy. They have the power to review police complaints, and they may have some ability to suggest policy. And then there are oversight bodies that are auditor or monitor focused, and those usually happen when some larger entity like the federal government comes in and suggests to a municipality that they need oversight of their police department. In Ann Arbor, we have a police oversight commission that is review focused. We do not get called out when the police are called out, but we have the ability to review complaints that citizens make against the police. We have also been given the ability to review police policies and to suggest changes to those policies. One of the unfortunate things that we found is that almost all civilian police oversight agencies have been formed because there has been a tragedy in the community. So there was an officer involved shooting in 2014 in Ann Arbor of a woman named Ora Rosser. And there was a great deal of community outrage, and they kept the pressure on Ann Arbor City Council, and the City Council's Human Rights Commission founded a task force which worked with the community and with oversight agencies from all across the country to come up with an ordinance that they wrote. City Council in Ann Arbor ended up rewriting that ordinance, but once the ordinance was passed, they convened this Police Oversight Commission, which I now chair. And what we found is all across the country, there's some tragedy that is usually the impetus for having civilian oversight of police. Does that need to be the case? Absolutely not. So if you in your community are concerned about police, are thinking about oversight, are interested in oversight, it needn't take a tragedy to do that. But unfortunately, that has been the big push from cities large and small across the country to form civilian oversight. There is a national body called the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, and the acronym is NACOL. And NACOL is a great resource if you are thinking about civilian oversight in your community. NACOL.org is a great place to go. So they have tons of resources, but they also offer training. And so I think that there are several things that we should think about in terms of what makes an oversight body successful. And one of those is critical, is independence. The Oversight Commission needs to be independent from the police department and probably independent from the city. You're going to have the most buy-in when it is made up of people who aren't swayed by city officials, for example. Some oversight agencies are made up of current law enforcement, or they include them in their bodies. Some are entirely civilian focused. So in Ann Arbor, police are not allowed to serve on the Oversight Commission, and you can't have been a city employee within the past 5 years. You need resources, and that's really important. You need funding, you need staffing, you need to do research, you need someone to take complaints, you need someone to make sure that complaints are getting followed up on. You need administrative support, and that's one of the things that happens. Often civilian oversight bodies are volunteers, and that's appropriate. And in our case, in Ann Arbor, it's been essential actually. And so when we have interacted with city officials who were providing obstacles who were obstacles to our work, we would remind them that we're not paid by you. And that actually tends to be a pretty powerful statement. In Ann Arbor, we feel responsible to the citizens of Ann Arbor, not to political officials, not to elected officials, not to the police department. Now, do we want to work with all of those groups? Absolutely. But we maintain our independence. And for those of you thinking about civilian oversight, that can be really, really challenging. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The third thing that you need to be successful is some sort of power. So you need an authority, a city council, a mayor, to have granted you the power to do review, to review policies, to review complaints, or to investigate complaints, or any combination of those things. And so you need some sort of authority to do that. However, I think one of the most important things about the power of civilian oversight is when you have the buy-in of the public. That is critical. And we found that that is where the source of our power comes from. When we're able to mobilize the public, then elected officials begin to pay attention to what we do because they want to be reelected. And so a lot of people get into civilian oversight because they feel a moral obligation to provide some oversight for police, for there to be some checks and balances in the system. And that's part of what we think about America ideally, right? Is that there are checks and balances on power. And civilian oversight can do that. But civilian oversight has to have teeth. It has to have some ability to have some power. In Ann Arbor's case, when we came on, we felt as if we didn't have much teeth. We felt that City Council had watered down the ordinance such that we didn't have much power. For example, we did not have subpoena power. We did not have the ability to subpoena officers and ask for their sworn testimony. One of the impediments to that is the police union, and oversight bodies from all across the country sort of run into that problem, where police unions are very powerful and city administrators and elected officials are very leery of challenging police unions. And so we didn't have as much power as we thought we would need. However, one of the things that's happened is we've learned how to leverage the power of the people. And essential to that is gaining trust. So in Ann Arbor, our mission and our vision include increasing the transparency of police and police policies, and increasing the accountability of police. And we take that mission very seriously. And one of the initial things that we've done, that we continue to do, that we will always do, and oversight bodies across the country do, is go out into the community, explain what you do, talk about what you do, make sure people follow you, make sure people are paying attention to what you're doing. Thus, when you need to push for change, you have the community behind you. And that's essential because you are going to deal with elected officials. We deal with elected officials all the time. And while many of them may have a genuine interest in police oversight, they're also really motivated to keep their jobs. And so when citizens get mobilized, elected officials pay attention.